Good evening, everyone. I am Li Ying, one of the Healthcare Scholarship Officers with Healthcare Scholarships and Talent. A warm welcome to Healthcare Scholarships Virtual Experience 2021. For some of you who have attended the earlier sessions, welcome again, and thank you for joining us in this segment. Throughout the 2 weeks of virtual events ending on 3rd March, you will get the opportunity to participate and interact with scholar ambassadors, scholarship officers, university partners, and professional representatives from various public healthcare institutions. We have an ongoing leaderboard and game section for participants to win attractive prizes, such as Universal Studios Singapore one-day pass, Disney Plus subscriptions, GrabFood vouchers. There are many ways to earn points, such as by attending programs, asking questions, and playing our daily games. Welcome to Learn and Explore Prosthetics and Orthotics with University of Strathclyde. The University of Strathclyde is one of the MOHH-approved overseas universities to pursue a course in prosthetics and orthotics. We have invited guest speakers, alumni, and current students from the university to share on the course structure, entry requirements, and student life today. Before we begin, if you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box. If you would like to direct your question to a specific speaker, please kindly indicate it in your question. Lastly, if you see questions that you are interested in being answered, please upvote the questions. We will have time for question and answer at the end of every segment today. I will now hand over the time to Christine and Roy from the University of Strathclyde to begin their presentation. Christine and Roy, please.
Good morning, everyone from Scotland. Good evening in Singapore. My name is Roy Bowers. I'm the course director for the BSc Prosthetics and Orthotics at the University of Strathclyde. This is one of the oldest, longest established programs for educating people in prosthetics and orthotics in the world. It dates right back to 1973 when we had our first intake of students. I myself studied prosthetics and orthotics at Strathclyde before going on to work in clinical practice for a number of years. I've been back now in the faculty teaching the subject for just over 30 years. So I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for your interest in the program at Strathclyde. And I'll hand you over to Christine, my colleague, who will introduce herself and make a small presentation. Thank you.
Well, hello everybody. Good afternoon or good evening in Singapore. I'll introduce myself. So I am Dr. Christine McMonigal, and I am one of the teaching staff at the National Centre for Prosthetics and Orthotics. Also, like Roy, I am a graduate of the programme, and I have spent a number of years working in clinical practice, both in the UK and overseas, and I've been working here at the university for the last 13 years. So we are always keen to find out a little bit about who we're speaking to you. So I have a few poll questions that I would like to ask. Okay. The first of those questions is, can you tell me what your gender is? So we're just going to give you a few seconds to allow you time to respond to that question, and then we will put up a few other questions for you. The second question we would like to ask you is around your educational pathway that you are following. Our understanding is that in Singapore, the majority of students will be following A levels, but you may also be following an international baccalaureate, or you might also be doing a national diploma, or perhaps you're following some other educational pathway. So we would like to ask you which pathway you are following. And our final question to you today, how much do you already know about prosthetics and orthotics? Perhaps you already know quite a lot. Perhaps you know a little bit, or a fair bit, or perhaps you know nothing at all and this is completely new to you. Whichever it is, you're very welcome to this session. One of the aims that we have for today's session is to try to increase your knowledge about prosthetics and orthotics. So again, if you could please respond to that question also. Okay, so just looking at some of the results coming in, thank you very much to everyone who's responded. We have a greater number of female participants today, which is probably not particularly surprising. I think that very much follows what we tend to find in terms of people coming onto our programme. So we had a far greater number of females. The majority of you, as I had expected, are following an A-level pathway, with a number of you following the International Baccalaureate, a number of you also following higher national diplomas. And I think the final question was also, the results from that are also quite interesting. So most of you have said that you know a little bit about prosthetics and orthotics, so that's good. We certainly hope that we can increase your knowledge of that today. A few of you have said, 20% of you have said you don't know anything about prosthetics and orthotics, so this session is certainly for you. And 20% of you have said that you know a fair amount about prosthetics and orthotics. So hopefully you will have some questions today and we will be very happy to answer them. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ask you to watch a couple of our videos that we have, and so I know that some people from MOHH are going to play them for you today. So I hope that you can enjoy.
Talking 1983 in the Falkland Islands, not during the war, but after the war. And I was running the military bomb disposal for the British Army in the Falkland Islands. And I was doing a reconnaissance outside a minefield with a colleague of mine who was walking in front of me, and we're outside a minefield and I stood on a mine and it blew my foot off, basically. I started working with students when one of the prosthetists, the West of Scotland Mobility and Rehabilitation Centre, Westmark, suggested that because I'm really quite mobile for somebody who has a prosthetic leg, that I might like to work with students in the university. And actually, I feel good about it because I pay something back. So I love it. I absolutely, thoroughly enjoy it. The students, it's one thing seeing it on a drawing, in a movie, but do it for real. And it's real flesh and real bone. And most importantly, different types of limb, different types of amputation, and you're handling it, and we're all different. Every one of us is different. And the students get used to talking and handling and then designing something, which is most important. It enables me to walk out of this room if people like that weren't doing the job. It's got to be one of the most rewarding jobs in the world, to build a leg, put it on somebody and see them walk. It doesn't get any better than that. That's it. It's a fantastic profession.
Prosthetics is the rehabilitation of someone who has lost their limb, and so a prosthesis is a device to replace a part of the body that's missing. And orthotics rehabilitation is concerned with helping people who have a deficient limb or part of the body and placing a device to support that part of the body.
We do anatomy, biology. You need to know fundamentals of physics, and you need to have maths in your background for this, but it's really good. It's not only theory though, it's like 2 or 3 days a week of practical as well, and actually getting to meet patients and the communication skills between you and your patient and making them the prosthetic limb or the orthotic limb and fitting. It's a whole range of aspects to it.
70% of the time we are hands-on, casting patients, doing modifications on the mold, being in the workshop.
It's a globally recognised degree, and if you want to travel, it's a ticket abroad. I love that. I think it's fantastic that you can maybe do a couple of years in Sri Lanka or Africa or something, working for charities. You can come back, you can go to Sweden and Norway and do maybe more development and things.
I think it's just quite a rewarding course. So my favourite thing about the course is when we go on placement, we actually put what we've learned into practice, and with supervision, but eventually less and less supervision. You get to put it into practice and see how your course gets to change people's lives and to improve it.
The course is hard work, a lot of hard work, but it's so worth it when you see that patient walk with something you've made or something you've helped make. It's amazing. It's a lot of hard work, but it's so worth it in the end.
Hi there, I hope you found those videos useful as an introduction to our programme. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you a mini presentation that I have about our programme. Okay, so I'm going to go through this presentation, which will take about 25 minutes or so, and then we'll have a little bit of time at the end of that to look at your questions. Okay, so just to say, the image that you see here, this is at the front entrance to our department, the National Centre for Prosthetics and Orthotics. We are part of a wider department called the Department of Biomedical Engineering, and we sit within the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Strathclyde. So the University of Strathclyde is a technological university with the focus very much on technologies. So that is why we sit, I think, quite effectively within our faculty and our department. So in terms of what I'm going to cover this morning, I will briefly introduce to you a little bit about what prosthetics and orthotics is. We'll talk through what the skills and knowledge required are in order to become an effective prosthetist orthotist. Then I'll spend a little bit of time explaining the course content, and I'll go through that from first year to fourth year. Then we'll look at the entry requirements for our programme, very much with the focus on what we would expect students from Singapore to be studying. Finally, we'll touch a little bit on the career prospects for a prosthetist orthotist. And finally, we'll cover why Strathclyde. We believe that Strathclyde is the best place to come to study prosthetics and orthotics. So, prosthetics and orthotics is a very specialist career which combines medical and engineering knowledge to fit and design prostheses or artificial limbs, and orthoses, which are also called splints, braces, or calipers for people with a wide range of disabilities. So the majority of our graduates will tend to perhaps work in one discipline or the other discipline. So it's a dual qualification, but people will then tend to specialise in one area or the other. However, some of our graduates do work as dual practicing clinicians also. So a prosthetist, as was explained in the video, is a health professional who provides patients with replacement for a limb which is lost through disease, accident, or congenital deformity. An important role that the prosthetist does is they spend some time to assess the patient to identify what their functional loss is, and then prescribe the most suitable prosthesis which will meet the client's requirement. So, for example, the type of prosthesis which might be provided to a highly active athlete would be quite different to the type of prosthesis that might be provided to an elderly person who is only mobilizing inside their own accommodation. And the role of the prosthetist is to understand the functional loss and to make a suitable interface to interact with the person's residual limb, and then to identify the best components that might meet the functional requirements of the patient. An orthotist is a health professional who assesses the patient's needs. The patient will still have their limb present and intact, but for a vast range of reasons, that limb may not be functioning correctly. Therefore, some of the types of conditions that we work with as an orthotist include stroke, rheumatoid arthritis, cerebral palsy, and diabetes. These are the most common conditions, but there are many conditions that we work with. As an orthotist, you can be fitting someone with a very simple insole to help them walk more comfortably, or perhaps to run more effectively. Or you could also be fitting them with a complete body exoskeleton, for example, if they have a paralysis of the spine. So I hope you can get the sense that orthotics is actually very varied. So the orthotist will, in the same way as the prosthetist, they will analyze the functional loss, and then they will design and fit the most suitable orthosis which will provide support to the body or the limbs. So an orthotist can work with the lower limbs, the upper limbs, and the spine. So thinking about the skills and knowledge required by a prosthetist orthotist, the prosthetist orthotist will understand the anatomy and the dynamics of the human body. So understanding how the body moves, how the body functions, is a really core aspect of our knowledge. Also, very importantly, the prosthetist orthotist is someone who enjoys working with others. You have to have excellent communication skills and be able to appreciate a person's psychological, social, and cultural needs. There are a huge range of different patients that we often work with as prosthetists and orthotists, and we have to develop skills in order to work with a wide variety of different people from different backgrounds, and this is really important in terms of how we communicate with people. Often people can be in a fragile situation, perhaps immediately after experiencing a traumatic limb loss or a traumatic loss of function, for example, from a stroke, and therefore having very good people skills and being able to work with people who are often worried, anxious, and afraid is very important in terms of helping them to build their confidence as they move forwards. When you graduate from the programme, most people will then, over a period of a few years, then tend to specialise in a particular area. So, for example, as a prosthetist, you might specialise in upper limb or lower limb prosthetics. There are lots of specialists who might focus on the area of high activity prosthetics for athletes and para-athletes who you might see competing in the Olympic Games. Or you might want to focus on working with small children and paediatric prosthetics. When you're working with children, because they are growing at a very quick rate, it's really important that they receive continuous checkups and reviews in order to ensure that they are being handled appropriately and that the prosthesis keeps to the size of the person that you are working with. In orthotics, graduates will also tend to specialise also. So for example, in upper limb orthotics, lower limb or spinal in an area of the body, or perhaps in a particular patient group, such as paediatrics, or specific disease processes. So people will develop an increased knowledge about these particular areas, such as the diabetic foot, stroke, and neurological conditions. So, for example, for myself, my own research interests are around stroke and neurological conditions, but I also undertake some clinical practice in upper limb orthotics for people who have experienced a type of injury called a brachial plexus injury. So a brachial plexus injury is a nerve injury to the upper part of the spine, where the nerves supplying the upper limb are sometimes torn or avulsed from the spinal cord, and as a result, the arm becomes paralyzed. So part of my role as an orthotist is to make specific orthotic interventions for that patient group. So now we're going to move on and we'll talk a little bit about the subjects that you might study on the BSc Honours Prosthetics and Orthotics programme. The three subjects that you see here at the top are what we call our core subjects. So first of all, human biological sciences, in which you study the anatomy, physiology and pathologies affecting the human body. Then principles of prosthetics and orthotics design, where you will study subjects including biomechanics, dynamics, electronics, and graphics in order to be able to understand how forces are impacting on the human body and how we can then use our knowledge to apply the most appropriate designs in order to, for example, transfer weight from the person to the floor. Prosthetics and orthotics science is another core subject, and that's where our students will learn the key skills around how to assess the human body, how to capture shape, how to modify casts appropriately, and then also how to manufacture and fit prostheses and orthoses. The prosthetics and orthotics science course takes up a core significant chunk of the timetable. So for example, our second and third years will probably spend 3 days a week studying the prosthetics and orthotics science. And that's very much because of the high nature of the practical content of what we aim to deliver on our programme. Other subjects which are also studied include professional and technical skills. So building up your skills in terms of using specific tools in the workshop and machine shop. From a professional point of view, building up skills in your communication, role play, and interactions with others is really critical and key to what we do. One of the other subjects studied is called Health Services Research, where you will start to develop skills in order to understand how to critically appraise the evidence. And that's very important in relation to our role as prosthetist orthotists, because we're such a small and unique profession. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of how we actually contribute to building the evidence base for our profession. As well as that, you'll learn some things about ethics and also about statistics as well. Finally, one of the other subjects that is studied is referred to as interprofessional learning. Okay, that takes place actually at one of our other universities in Glasgow, which is very close by to our own campus called Glasgow Caledonian University. And you study alongside 8 other allied health profession groups. And the core goal or the core aim of that subject is to try to get you working from the earliest point in your career as a multidisciplinary team. There is good evidence to show that multidisciplinary team working has improved outcomes for patients. So in terms of how our course is structured, we have a 4-year course with 2 semesters in each year. The first 3 years are based at the University of Strathclyde, and the final year includes 2 4-month clinical placements. The clinical practice placements are a really critical and important element of the programme. That's where you really start to consolidate your learning, your theoretical and your practical learning, whilst working as part of a team of prosthetists and orthotists within a clinical service. So those clinical placements can be in a range of different locations. So we work alongside the NHS throughout the UK and Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And we also have placements elsewhere in Europe, including the Republic of Ireland and Norway, Sweden and Denmark. And also more recently, we've been working to provide some placements in Australia also. This is something that we continue to look to grow. So we are always on the lookout for other opportunities for places where our students might go on clinical placement. And we think that's a great opportunity to perhaps live, not just spend some of your university time here locally in Glasgow, but also an opportunity to live somewhere else, either in the UK or perhaps in Europe or elsewhere. The clinical placements are really important in terms of how you then start to put into practice the theoretical components of the programme which have been provided in the previous 3 years of the programme. However, I would also stress that we do have patients who come into our own facilities, and the students will work with patients in a very controlled environment within the university setting. But it's actually when you go out onto clinical placement, that's when you're actually starting to really develop your skills, and then you're delivering your own prostheses and orthoses while being closely supervised by appropriate mentors. So in terms of the entry requirements, and I've highlighted the key ones for people from Singapore in bold here. So the first lot of entry requirements really refer to the specific qualifications which are appropriate in Scotland. So you don't need to worry too much about that. We accept GCE A levels, and what we ask for are 3 A levels at grades A, B and B. These must include maths and at least 1 further science subject. Physics is the preferred subject, but we are happy to look at students who perhaps have been studying maths and biology, or perhaps maths, chemistry and biology. And so if you do have any further questions about particularly entry requirements, that's something that we're happy to try to answer at the end of this. Some students might be studying the International Baccalaureate, and if you are, the entry requirements for that are a score of 34, with the maths at the higher level of 6, and physics and biology or human biology are also recommended at that higher level 6 also. We do accept other qualifications also. So if you perhaps are following a slightly different educational pathway, we're very happy to talk to you about your entry qualifications and suitable requirements around that. So thinking about our graduates and what happens at the point of graduation, there is a national and international shortage of prosthetists and orthotists. So our graduates generally do never have any challenges in finding employment post-graduation. There are excellent career prospects in the UK, the rest of the world, and particularly the USA also. In the UK, prosthetists and prosthetic and orthotic graduates tend to work mainly for the NHS, and that is either being employed directly by the NHS or perhaps working for a company contracted to provide prosthetic and orthotic clinical services to the NHS. So one of the things that a student might find is when they're on clinical placement, they will have a little bit of exposure to the different types of service provision. As well as that, students and graduates have opportunities to then move into advanced clinical practice or private practice, but also there are opportunities to move into management and further research and education. I would also like to highlight that we also offer an MSc in Prosthetics and Orthotics, which is a one-year program which people can follow directly after the four-year undergraduate degree. Okay, but some people may also choose to work for a number of years in clinical practice and then come back and do a one-year master's. So in order to do that, you must have the degree in prosthetics and orthotics. The MSc covers a combination of compulsory and optional classes to allow you to specialise in a particular area. The focus is very much on developing a student's research skills with the aim to develop leaders within the field. And there are also other opportunities in relation to distance learning masters and PhD study also. I'm just going to say a little bit about myself and tell you a little bit about my career journey. So I also graduated from the University of Strathclyde in 1994, a long time ago, and then I worked with a commercial organisation called Blatchford. They're one of the large producers of prosthetic components in the UK, and they also tend to distribute their devices worldwide. So I worked in the south of England in a city called Brighton, which is very beautiful if you ever get the chance to visit. And then I wanted to go and work overseas for a little while as well. So I took the opportunity to become involved in development work, and I took a role with voluntary services overseas in Sri Lanka. And that then led to further opportunities overseas, also in the same country, working with some different organisations, including a charitable organisation called Motivation. And then I moved more into the field of education. So I worked with the Sri Lanka School of Prosthetics and Orthotics in a teaching capacity. So that was really my first role working as a lecturer in Sri Lanka. And then I've come back now to back home, I guess you can say, to the University of Strathclyde, where my work is a very interesting mix of teaching and a little bit of research and a little bit of clinical work. So our National Centre graduates work across all over the world, places you can see here. And I think that one of the very nice things about this, because we are quite a small profession, is that you find you will have friends all over the world at the point of graduation, and people are scattered across the globe. And I think it's a great opportunity just to meet and mix with people of lots of different cultures, and also have lots of friends in lots of different places that you can also always go and visit on holiday. So why Strathclyde? Why would you want to come and study prosthetics and orthotics at Strathclyde? What our partners and employers tell us is that our Strathclyde graduates have excellent clinical skills. That is built by the opportunities that we offer to work with real patients within the university setting in a very controlled environment, where you have very close supervision by experienced clinicians and intensive clinical placements also on approved sites. So all of our clinical placements have to be formally approved to ensure that the students have the appropriate supervision whilst they're on clinical placement. We also offer an opportunity for students to specialise in an area of their own interest prior to placement. So students have an opportunity to specialise in some. These are just a few of the areas of specialisation that we offer as an optional module. Those include management of neurological conditions, management of the diabetic foot, management of spinal deformity, lower limb prosthetic design, and paediatric prosthetics. So this is really helpful because it actually provides you with a very high level of knowledge about in a specific region or area of prosthetics and orthotics, which makes you very attractive when you go back to your own country in order to work with your health service, in order to perhaps build an area of specialism or expertise. So a little bit about accreditation. Our undergraduate degree programme is approved by the Health and Care Professions Council, or HCPC, which is within the UK. That's the professional body which provides us with a licence to practice. And that is very important in terms of ensuring that we are meeting the appropriate standards to train prosthetists and orthotists. Also, we are accredited by the International Society for Prosthetics and Orthotics, which makes our degree, I think, very globally recognised. And I think that's of particular importance to students from an international perspective. And not every undergraduate degree programme has that accreditation. Also, in the UK, the Complete University Guide is a guide which ranks universities and programmes across a range of different courses. So just to point out, we are ranked second in the UK for medical technologies in the 2021 Complete University Guide. The people who are first, I believe, is the University of Dundee, and certainly happy to tell you they don't offer a prosthetics and orthotics programme. So certainly in relation to prosthetics and orthotics, we would be considered the top school within the UK. So I'll just leave you with a picture of, this is the Wolfson building, which has recently been refurbished. And that is the building in which we are based, and we also have some gait labs. But our main teaching facilities are in a different building called the Curran building. This is my email address, so you can certainly, after today, I'm happy to take emails from anybody. But what I would like to do now is perhaps just to open up the floor to see if anybody has any questions that they might wish to ask just about what I've presented so far today.
Okay, thank you, Christine. We have a couple of questions from the floor. So the first one is, what is the difference between prosthetics and orthotics?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll take that. So first of all, prosthetics is where you're replacing a limb which is lost or missing. So that means that the person, when they present to you in your clinic, will have an absence of a limb, and that could be an upper limb, a lower limb. It could be multiple limbs which are missing, and with orthotics, the patient will still have their limbs intact. They will still be present in some form, but perhaps they would not be functioning well. So that could be from either due to different disease processes affecting the body, or it could also be due to a trauma, for example, such as causing a nerve injury, where they might require a supporting device fitted around the body part which is injured or not functioning properly.
Thank you, Christine. The next question will be, what is the process to tailor-make castings for patients?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one also. That's a good question, so thank you for that. There are actually a range of different processes that can be undertaken in order to make what we sometimes refer to as the socket, or the interface between the patient and the device. And the first, or probably the one that is most commonly still done, certainly across the world, would be a process of taking a plaster cast. So if you look back at a couple of the videos that you saw earlier, where we had some students who were actually taking a mold of the person's limb, and they were using plaster of Paris impregnated in bandage. So that can generally be wrapped onto a limb in order to capture the shape. Now, when you do that process is not yet completed, because you then have to go ahead and obtain, using that cast, you would then obtain a positive model of the person's leg, and you do that by then filling up your cast with plaster of Paris mixture, and then you will end up with this positive model. Once you have the positive model, that will then you will then modify that in a process called cast rectification. Okay, so that's where you are adding plaster and removing plaster from specific areas, and that's really where your understanding of biomechanics and the biomechanical principles behind what we do becomes really important. So you then actually have to modify that cast in order to ensure that you're taking the weight correctly, or perhaps you're preventing a deformity from getting worse in an orthosis. And once you have that shape, you can then manufacture either the socket for a prosthesis or the shell for an orthosis on top of that shape. There are other ways in which that can be done. So, for example, using CAD processes, using scanners as well to capture that shape, or even just, very simply taking measurements, or perhaps other materials such as, using alginates. There are lots of different ways of actually trying to capture that shape. So one of the things that you would also learn on the program is when is it appropriate to use some of these different processes in order to capture the best shape.
Thank you, Christine. The next question will be, what is the ratio of male and female students in the cohort?
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you again. The ratio is usually about 1/3 male to 2/3 female. And again, Roy might want to have more specific figures on that, but that's the ratio, which has been fairly, I guess, static over the last maybe probably 12 years at least since I've been working in the admissions part of the programme, and I think that's quite interesting, as probably it does follow a lot of the other healthcare professions in relation to that gender mix or balance. Perhaps what's quite interesting about prosthetics and orthotics is that traditionally it was actually a very male-dominated profession, because of the work that tended to go on in the workshops, and a lot of the actual manufacturing processes were traditionally seen as much more male-dominated, but we have very much seen this consistent shift now to an increasing number of females in the profession. I don't know if Roy wants to comment on that.
I think it's entirely possible for female students to perform the physical tasks as well as the male students. I mean, there's no longer that issue. It's not an issue at all anymore. As you say, Christine, we've had, more female than male applicants, and people entering onto the program for pretty much the duration of the program. As you said, when I came into prosthetics and orthotics as a student, it was entirely male dominated. I don't think there was such a thing as a female prosthetist or orthotist. That's quite a number of years ago. But right from the very outset of the course, which I've already mentioned was 1973, there were probably 50-50 in terms of the split between female and male applications. And it has changed the face of the profession nationally and internationally.
Thank you, Christine and Roy. I find that pretty interesting because in Singapore as well, we see that most of the healthcare courses are pretty much dominated by females. They usually tend to have a higher ratio of female students, but we do find that certain professions are, especially in current times, both females and males can be able to do well in the professions that they are interested in. So I like to encourage both genders of students. If you are interested in prosthetics and orthotics, no matter what gender you are, do find out more and you can go for the course as long as you are interested and have passion for it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, yes. The next question, an audience would like to know whether they will get to work with animals during the course, or is it just mainly humans?
Okay. Yeah. It is very much humans that we work with on the program. So we don't have any specific animal prosthetics options. I guess what I would say is I think the knowledge and the skills that you gain in relation to fitting a human with a prosthesis I think are very applicable when you're also working with animals. But obviously what you would need to know is around more about the animal anatomy that you're fitting around if you were wanting to fit that. I do know some prosthetists, orthotists, certainly from a time working in Sri Lanka, that were involved with fitting prostheses to elephants, and it was they were working in combination with vets in order to do that. So the skills and knowledge that you gain are certainly applicable.
Yeah, I also know some colleagues in America who work with veterinary practices, small animal practices, and who make prostheses for dogs, for example. So there is a sort of side track there for people who are interested, particularly in that area of practice, but it's not something that we teach in the undergraduate program.
Okay, thank you, Christine and Roy. I think we can address one last question because we still have a couple of minutes. During Christine's sharing earlier, you talked about the entry requirements, like certain subjects, and physics being one of the preferred subjects to have studied in, be it in GCE A levels or their previous study programs. So some of the audience without a physics background would like to know that whether not having prior physics knowledge would put them at a disadvantage in the course.
Yeah. Potentially, it might put you at a slight disadvantage. However, what potentially we can offer is we can offer a summer school, which is being run online This is actually the first year that they've actually opened that up to international applicants. So that would certainly be a way in which we could help to the students to address that particular shortfall. So there are ways around that. The other thing that is maybe worth also bearing in mind is the core part of physics, which is physics is obviously a very wide subject anyway, but the core part of physics that is really important for us to help the students understanding is really all of that information about understanding forces and dynamics and Newton's laws. So sometimes what we do know is that sometimes some of the maths A level have modules which specifically address and cover that. So we would also be asking you a little bit more in depth about, you know, the types of studies that you had actually done as part of your maths A level as well, and that would also potentially address that area.
Thank you, Christine. Yeah, for students who do not have a physics background, I think you do not have to worry because like Christine mentioned, they do offer like a summer bridging program or additional lessons to help you understand and pick up the skills. And I'm pretty sure that during the first year of studies, there will also be courses and modules related to physics that will help you to catch up during your studies. Yeah. So next, I think we'd like to move on to the next segment, but before that we'll take a look at another video on studying in Glasgow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Glasgow is a great city. It's big enough that there's everything that you need, that you'd like. There's lots of live music, lots of clubs, lots of bars, lots of good restaurants.
I love the city. I think it's amazing. I think there's always something to do.
It's a great city. It really is. It's got everything for everybody. I mean, if you can't find it here, then it doesn't exist.
Just the other night, I was doing pottery painting with a bottle of wine. I mean,
Glasgow's an amazing city. I think it's great because everything's perfectly where you need it. It's easy to navigate, which is really helpful for me.
But it's not so big that you get stuck in it. If you want to leave the city and head to a beautiful place outside, you can be there in half an hour.
The train systems are really good as well. So even on weekends, if I want to take a train up to the Highlands, half an hour to an hour, and we'll reach like the great outdoors in the mountains and just go for a hike and stuff. It's so easy to get around.
The living costs are a lot lower than other cities in the UK, and I've lived in London and Brighton, and it really makes a difference, you know, to the amount of stuff that you can do with your friends. So obviously that's a bonus.
I've been able to meet different students here on campus and also just tour the city and just see how people actually do make Glasgow a very dynamic place, and I don't think it's compared to any other place in the world.
The program that I want to study is the Prosthetics and Orthotics. So Strathclyde is one of the good choice for me in the good rank. So I decided to choose the Strathclyde. At the beginning, I thought it's gonna be like really difficult to find everything or to submit the documents. But the education agency helped me a lot in preparation process. So the application in visa is not that hard or difficult to make it. Glasgow is the charming and lovely city. It's a big melting pot that many international people comes and goes. So it's not like really hard for you to settle down. It's not far to walk or to travel around. So you can go and find the things that you like to do. After graduate from Strathclyde, I would like to bring this kind of knowledge back to my country and think about what else we can do to improve the quality of life of the person with disability in my country.
Okay, we will be moving on to the next segment, but before that, I would like to just remind our participants and audience that Christine and Roy will join us back for Q&A at the end of the session. So if you still have any questions for them, feel free to put them in the Q&A box and we'll revisit it at the end of the session. So next, I would like to invite the following speakers who are current students and alumni from the University of Strathclyde to do a sharing. They are Claudia Chua and David Loon, who are current students from the University of Strathclyde, Nigel Wong, Prosthetics and Orthotics at KK Women's and Children's Hospital, and last but not least, Eddie Young, Prosthetics and Orthotics at Khoo Teck Puat Hospital. Claudia, please.
Hi everyone. I'm Claudia from the University of Strathclyde. I'm year 2 this year studying prosthetics and orthotics, and I will be the first of 4 ambassadors today. It's still morning here, but for you guys, I think it's quite late in the day, so bear with us. Don't be shy to ask for anything. So I'll just be talking a bit about why I considered the course. So when I was considering potential careers, considering my academic strengths and personal interests, I was seriously considering doing mechanical engineering. But I've always wanted to do healthcare, and I've always been thinking about healthcare. And after getting exposure and attending several talks, I realized that maybe this was where I wanted to be. And so what I'm covering this year is I cover full orthotics in SEM 1, but I think that moved to year. I think the syllables are changing a bit. And I'm doing transfemoral now, which is amputation through the thigh. And I'm doing upper limb anatomy as well as biomechanics for my physics module. If you're worried about your subject combi or what you're studying in maybe poly, don't be worried to ask about it. I did bio, chem, math, and linguistics 4 H2s in ACJC, but I dropped bio to H1 near right before prelims. Yes, so just in case you need a gauge. So about my Glasgow life, I live only like 2 minutes from the National Centre. I work at the lazy kind, and that's where most of our physical classes take place. And for those of you who like hands-on, that's loads of it. When we were still in campus, we were like last year, we were in workshop maybe 9 to 4, about 2 times a week, straight from first year. And I was thinking that maybe some of you guys were having difficulty visualizing what Christine was talking about. So here I have a cast. So this is wrapped around a patient's leg, right? So this shape is specific to the patient, and we will fill it with plaster, and after we fill it with plaster, simply put, it becomes a replica of the patient's leg. Simply put, there's more to that, but simply put, yeah, just in case you needed help to visualize. And apart from workshop, we have biology and physics lectures, and we also have modules for group work and professional skills. It's quite an intimate cohort. I only have about 35 course mates and cohort mates, and because of that, you get to know the teachers quite well as well. Personally, for me, when I was in year 1, I was the only scholar, so it was a bit awkward and a bit alone. But if you come, you have me and David, so don't need to worry if you worry about that. We'll have support. So moving on, studying overseas, I feel like it sounds super exciting and super glamorous, but unlike typical exchange programs, ours is 4 years and it counts all your grades. When I first thought about this course, the overseas aspect seemed super exciting, and it is, but uni is uni. And what I've learned that is super important is discipline and proactivity. I think that we're all used to a bit of spoon feeding. I'm used to spoon feeding. Your teachers would just give you a lot of stuff and you're supposed to do them and they'll mark them. But in uni, I think that you're really left to your own devices. Self-study and sourcing your own stuff to read is expected. And I remember being so frustrated at how lost I was because I had so much to do, but I didn't know what those things were. I should be studying, but I'm not sure what. And I'm not perfect yet. No, I won't be perfect. And it's important, but it's important to be prepared to offer something to manage your expectations. Just like every course, uni needs dedication, and you need to go in expecting to work for the degree. And I'm not telling you that it'll be easy or that difficult, because that's subjective, but you know, you have loads of time, but also loads of catching and reading up. And another thing about living alone is, you know, being independent and managing your studies by yourself and kind of dictating your whole life. And for me, that was difficult because I would say I'm spoiled. My mom woke me up for school, and my family doesn't cook, so neither do I. Shopping for yourself, doing your laundry, and learning how to cook. You know, coming to Glasgow and living alone, managing myself, has helped me to grow as a person. I've spoken a lot. So lastly, the advice for me would be to see the end goal. I think that's important for me, because when things start to get tough, I start feeling incompetent. But really, I have to remind myself that it's not my grades or, you know, the achievement money at the end. In the end, it's studying to be a better clinician to my patients in the future, and that's the most important to remember. I don't want to go into work life, you know, unprepared to give the bare minimum. Yes. So lastly, I will show you some pictures of mine. I haven't really traveled a lot because I struggle with time management. So here's me outside the National Centre. This is the blue doors you saw in Christine's presentation just now. So it's not recently. And here's the current building actually, where the National Centre for Prosthetics and Orthotics is, from my window. This is a snowman I saw with a box on his head. And this is my grocery shopping, because I thought it'd be nice to show how much I binge buy. And some other photos I took on my walk. So thank you for listening. Please ask any questions if you have any, and I will pass the time on to David. Thank you.
Hi, thanks Claudia. I'm David Boon. Just a bit about myself. I'm a year 1 prosthetics and orthotics student. And I chose P&O because I saw P&O as a bridge between my strengths in physics and my interest in human biology. And I thought it was a meaningful way for me to contribute to society. And also I love traveling, and I love hiking as well, as you can see from the photos. So like if you do come over to Scotland, you can join me and Claudia. We can go explore Scotland together. Yeah. Yeah. Next slide. Okay, so surprise, surprise, I'm still in Singapore, but I'm looking forward to go over to Strathclyde soon. Yeah, so this is due to, I guess, the lockdown measures in UK. So actually, MOH has allowed me to go since the second semester. However, because of the Tier 4 lockdown measures in UK, I decided not to postpone my flight, and but I'm still looking forward to go over likely in March. Yes. Yeah, so I guess I can speak for my online experience so far. So I guess one of the greatest struggles of my online experience is coping with the differences in time zone. So as you know, UK runs on a different time zone, and it is 8 hours back. So some of my lectures do end a bit late, roughly, some of them roughly around like 11, 12 at most. And I guess initially it was hard for me to adjust because yeah, I'm not used to like studying at night. It's like sometimes I'm a bit half asleep to be honest. But I guess as I got used to it, I made like a structured timetable for me to like regulate my study, my rest hours, and that helped me better so-called acclimatize myself to the online experience. I guess I also have to be thankful for the accommodating teaching staff, and I guess they are really down to helping students. So initially I had a issue with my registration visa due to the sudden COVID-19 measures. So yeah, I think Roy and Eileen, our scholarship officer, both helped me just ease through the process and help me get up to speed with whatever I need. Yeah, so I guess they have also been really welcoming to international students as well, considering that this COVID-19 pandemic has been so unprecedented. Yeah, so what they do is they have like pre-recorded assessments and virtual assessments with patients as well, so that I didn't feel that left out, and I could participate in the class like discussion as well. So I know you have a lot of fears like, oh, traveling overseas during COVID-19, is this the right thing to do? I'd like to reassure you that you will not miss out as an international student. You will not be at a disadvantage, because I think they are very well aware of the time differences and our like some restrictions that we cannot go over to UK in a certain time. But hopefully, as the vaccine comes out, things might change as well. Yeah. So I guess just making the best out of the online experience. So as you can see from the photos, I mean, I used the time to like celebrate Christmas, celebrate my nephew's birthday. So I don't think I'm missing out. But I guess yeah, just making the best out of what we have, and I think you're good to go. Yeah, and that's all for me. Yes. On over to Ed.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so thanks David for your sharing earlier. My name is Eddie. I graduated Strathclyde from same course for P&O in 2018. So right now I'm currently working as a P&O in KDPH, Khoo Teck Puat Hospital. Yeah, so I'd just like to share a little bit about the studying overseas experience that MOH has given us, as well as of course the course being overseas course, so we can only do it in Strathclyde. Okay, so I felt that actually studying overseas give us quite a good perspective of life that's beyond Singapore. So it really opens your eyes to how things happen in the world outside of Singapore. And studying in Glasgow actually is a really great place that has great culture and friendly people. The main thing that I kind of struggled with at the start was the accent a little bit. So I think Claudia and David will know as well. At the start, before we enroll in Strathclyde, we have to get an interview from one of the lecturers. So at the start, it was a phone call for me. And it was a little bit difficult to understand the whole conversation. You know, you have to kind of decipher through the thick Scottish accent. But once you get past that, everything is good. And Glasgow is a really friendly place. It's a great place to study in. So one thing about my student life that I really enjoyed was the outdoors that Scotland offered. So we spent a lot of time doing outdoor activities outside of on weekends, outside of our class time. And I think that is one of the best things of my student experience. And also the Scottish Highlands offer some of the best sceneries in the world. Of course, when the weather is good in Scotland, because most of the time it's always raining. So that is something that I really enjoyed. On my next slide, I think I've got some photos of my time in Scotland. Yeah, so you can see majority of it is all outdoors kind of stuff, because that's what we really enjoyed. Top left, that's me and next speaker, Nigel. That's us outside the main door of the NCPO, National Centre of Prosthetics and Orthotics. And I think that's taken on the day we finished and submitted our dissertation. Yeah, right before we're prepping for our graduation. And the middle photo at the top, that's our class when we graduated in 2018. I'll share a little bit more about my working experience and things like that as a P&O and how Strathclyde basically prepared us for that. But I'll let Nigel share a bit about his time in Scotland and studying in Strathclyde first.
Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to assume you are there. See you all. My name is Nigel. I'm working as I graduated in Strathclyde same time as Eddie. We are, you can kind of say we are best buddies from there.
Yeah, so I'm now working as a P&O in KKH, in KK Women's and Children's Hospital. And what I'm doing there is mainly orthotics. So I'm focused on pediatrics since it's it being a women and children hospital. Mainly I'm seeing children every day. And what I decided maybe to share with you maybe more on what are the patient profiles we see. So in KKH, we do see a lot of patients with orthopedic conditions, such as those listed there, neurological conditions, and even those that come with a mixture of both. And I work in KKH with many teams. So if you're looking for something to work with doctors, to work with physiotherapists, work with occupational therapists, you work with nurses, you work with so many different people, then P&O is definitely one area that you would get this holistic care for the patient. So my 3 photos there, mainly I always like to attribute orthotics or P&O, mainly orthotics, as something like Iron Man. You're actually doing something like Iron Man. You're making a suit for someone in that sense to help them up and to achieve more in life. That's my team there in the second photo, my colleagues. And finally, as Eddie has shared already, there's so many nice scenery in Glasgow, or rather in Scotland. And that was during one of my hiking trips. So next slide, please. I'll just share more on my life there. So yeah, like with Eddie, I just took a few from our graduation. And you can see that too from the top left and in the center with our good friend there as well. The NCPO, the National Center, is literally going to be the home if you do end up going to Glasgow. On the right side was one of my hiking trips that I managed to do with a few friends of mine. And it was quite a long trip. It was a 100-mile hike kind of thing. Yeah, it was over 5 days. My bottom 2 photos I share is my 2 clinical placements. So those of you who have sat in for the lecture earlier, you know that in the program there are 2 clinical placements, one for prosthetics, one for orthotics. I had the privilege of going to London for my prosthetics one, which is the bottom left, and the center in the middle, that was a placement. I was really blessed to go to Sweden and have my orthotics placement there. So it was really fun. It was really cool. If there are questions about placement, maybe we can answer them later. Finally, at the bottom right was maybe a shout out to the organization as well of MOHH, where Eddie and I, we managed to go to South Africa for a conference for the International Society of Prosthetics and Orthotics. And that was a very nice time we had there in an international conference, meeting P&Os from all around the world. So that was quite an amazing experience as well. So yeah, now just to our last slide, we'll just maybe share more from our working experience from Eddie and myself. So maybe for me going first, working, this is just a few pictures of what work looks like for both of us. And you can see it's so varied. There are so many things involved in the work that we do. So I think Strathclyde, for that matter, has prepared us very adequately well, to come out to this working environment and to face the challenges in there. We had very long clinical placements, around 4 to 5 months. And I think that really taught us a lot. It taught us how to be independent. It taught us how to be prepared for the patients we will be seeing. And although they are not Singaporeans, although you'll be seeing people from around the world, generally patient profiles are similar to an extent. You learn a lot about how to deal with people. You learn a lot about how to prepare yourself, how to document down things, how to do reflection and such stuff as well. So I see mainly children now. It's a unique specialty within the field in a sense. Eddie himself can share a bit more on the patients he would see.
So similar to Nigel, I feel that Strathclyde has prepared us really well for the clinical part of our job. The main thing I feel that Strathclyde has given us ample preparation in is the patient sessions that we have every couple of weeks as part of our class curriculum. So this is outside of the placement, clinical placements that Nigel was sharing about. So even during our curriculum in uni, we actually have patients in patient sessions, and they're always guided. They are always very structured in a way where they build your clinical reasoning and also how you interact with patients, your social skills, interpersonal skills, and things like that. And I think that is one of the key things that I felt was really, really helpful when both of us came back to Singapore to start work, because you're not really completely thrown into the deep end. You have a good starting point, and that is something that I'm quite thankful that Strathclyde has prepared us good enough for. Yeah, I was just looking at some of the photos that Nigel have here. I'm pretty sure Roy and Christine are probably already judging the cast angles and things like that. Yeah, but yeah, generally I think we get quite good exposure at Strathclyde, and in terms of the theoretical and the practical part of the work, I think we get it's a good balance. We get the a good balance between theory as well as the practical side of things, and I think that is something that is quite important when you actually come out to actually come back to work and start your clinical work.
So maybe one last thing before we end and then head to the Q&A is I think there's the idea of what exactly I think Eddie and I can share on what exactly it feels like to be a P&O working in Singapore. So I think now that we've been working for a few years already, we can tell you that actually I think working as a P&O in Singapore is more than just the clinical things that you do. So I'm not sure about you guys, but when I first started out back when I was still choosing the courses, I thought P&O was purely a technical profession. And why I decided to go for it, it changed my mind, was because it was so clinical. There was so much patient fronting, you get to interact with so many people, you get to provide a direct access of help and care to the patient directly yourself. But more than that, as a P&O in Singapore, you'll be involved in so many things like research, you'll be involved in clinical stuff, you'll be involved in administrative stuff, you'll be involved in operational stuff, you need to know how to buy things, certain materials which are good for your patient, what components are good, stuff like that. And there's always that improvement, especially for our clinical staff in Singapore. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Eddie will agree with me that there's so much more than just the clinical work here. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation from Claudia, David, Eddie, and myself, providing you just some idea of what student life is like in Glasgow and what working life is like as a P&O in Singapore. So I think we are okay to head to the Q&A for questions, if any.
Okay, thank you, Claudia, David, Nigel, and Eddie for your sharing. We will now take some questions from the audience. So first up, we have a question that is on P&O. Since it is such a niche profession in Singapore, how did you find out more about the profession or even know that you're interested in it? Do you go for any attachments before studying, going to study for the course? So maybe Claudia and David can share first. Yeah. David, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I guess for me, I first found out about P&O from like the Bright Sparks magazine. I was actually reading Nigel Wong's article. Yeah, I'm not sure if he still remembers, but yeah. But I think I was quite inspired from that, and I started to research more, go do a lot of like research on YouTube, like see what's the latest advancement, and I guess yeah, I think applying for attachment is quite important because you really get to see what you will be working with in future, and I guess it gives you a good grasp of what to expect as well.
Claudia, would you like to add on?
I think for me, I was always exploring healthcare. So ACJC was very big on giving us talks and like higher education, like brochures and stuff. So I just kind of went for every single healthcare one. And one of them was MOHH, a prosthetics and orthotics one, which Eddie and Nigel were doing. I think they're doing a lot of promotion. And yes, that was when I thought that maybe I would like to pursue this. And for attachments, I think I didn't do any attachments until after my after my interview, where I kind of got scolded, not scolded, but like they told me you don't look like you know a lot. So we'll send you for attachment and see if you still want to do. That was my experience, but you should apply before. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Claudia and David. Nigel and Eddie, do you have anything to add on for this question?
I suppose. Okay. So yeah. So for myself, actually, yeah, like Roy was just saying. So for me, actually, my dad is in a P&O field. But that was quite a while back. So now he's gone to the private sector. But that wasn't the main push for why I wanted to be a P&O. So actually, initially before I decided on P&O, I wanted to do engineering. And I actually enrolled in mechanical engineering at the start. But then that's where I came across, sports prosthetics and things like that. Then I thought that was quite interesting because it's basically, you're kind of using engineering principles on the human body. And that's where I kind of got interest. Then, of course, a little bit finding out from my dad and stuff like that, then made me decide that, okay, I probably will just apply for this and see how it goes. So, yeah, here I am working as a P&O after that many years.
Thank you, Eddie. Nigel, anything else to add?
Just a quick one is please go for attachments. Attachments changed my mind. Yeah, I would have never gotten into P&O if not for attachments. Yeah, so I was very thankful to have gone for one, which helped change my mind.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Yeah, so echoing what Claudia and David said, you can actually find quite a few articles that Eddie and Nigel have contributed to, not just on Bright Sparks, but I believe for our MOHH content as well. We have talked to both of them. If you look at our posters, Eddie is actually our poster boy, one of our poster boys. So they have been very active in trying to encourage the younger ones to find out more about P&O and join the profession in Singapore. Okay. We'll move on to the next question. What kind of volunteering opportunities are available in Singapore to understand more about the profession? Maybe Nigel, you want to share? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good question. We talk about attachments, right? So where to go? Yeah. So there are opportunities. I think. I can't. I won't speak out for the other organizations. But yeah, if there's anyone interested, please contact MOHH. I believe they'll be our liaison. To identify where if you do one lah. Personally, from my side, yes, we are all more than welcome to welcome people who want to. Maybe I would change the word, not volunteering, but just seeing what the job shadowing is like. I mean, volunteering means you might be doing some work for us, in that sense. But yeah, it's more of just shadowing, seeing what the job looks like, seeing whether it's really your cup of tea, whether you're suited for it. More than welcome to come and join us. Yeah, maybe I'm not sure about Eddie's side. Well, because there's more to this than just coming, especially now, with COVID, with everything is slightly stricter, there's more safety measures.
Definitely.
But definitely we can work something out, yeah.
Eddie, do you have anything to add?
Similar to Nigel, I think, yeah, it's a good idea to go on some attachment, even if it's just for a couple of days, a week or so, just to find out a little bit more about what actually goes on, in the day-to-day clinical kind of work. My side, I will be happy to take on some of the people who want to do attachment, just to find out a little bit more about P&O. Because at KPH, actually our service is just starting up, so it's still not as in full scale as probably Nigel's or TDSH. But yeah, I'll be happy to take on anyone who wants to know a little bit more about profession.
Okay, thank you, Nigel and Eddie. Yeah. Before COVID-19, we actually do host job shadowing and attachment programs for students who are interested in finding out more about the profession. But like Nigel and Eddie shared, due to COVID-19, there may be certain additional restrictions being put in place, but we still welcome you to write in to us or even directly to the institutions that you are interested in to check on whether you'd like to find out if they have any opportunities for you to go for job shadowing. Yeah. So we'll move on to the next question. Okay, to the scholars, was it hard adjusting to overseas life? And then is the international student population high, I suppose, at University of Strathclyde? And how many Singaporeans are there within your cohort? Yeah, perhaps Claudia can go first, since you're still, studying in Scotland. Yeah.
Okay. Hard adjusting to overseas life. I think for me, like I said earlier, I don't know how to cook and everything. Very pampered. But so I think that was one thing, but it wasn't the hardest thing. I think the hardest thing for me was getting along with the people here. It's kind of like a big cultural shock because some of them say stuff you never ever imagine you ever hear. I think it's yes, it's quite shocking. Cultural shock, but I think that was the hardest part for me. Studies and everything, I think you should be okay. Yeah, I won't be so worried about that part. Also, there's no such thing as orientation here, so you have to make friends by yourself. And our cohort only has 35 people, right? So if you want to find more friends, then you have to venture out some more. It'll be quite hard. International student population and Singaporeans. Still, for my year, there's one other Singaporean, but she's not a scholar. Yeah, so I, really blessed to have met her. So it's just me and her. Other than that, I think I would say half the course are at least from either UK or Ireland, and then the other remaining group are from Saudi Arabia or Oman. Yeah. That's for my.
That's quite a diverse population of students from different countries, even though the cohort is pretty small.
I feel like for Nigel and Eddie's year, it looks like they have looks a bit more diverse.
Arguable, I think. Probably about same, I think.
Okay. Nigel, do you have anything to add for this question?
Adjusting to overseas life.
Yeah. Do you still remember your overseas life?
Yeah. I would say I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed. I can understand Claudia's difficulties. It is challenging if you're alone. So I'm very blessed that I had Eddie. I'm not sure if you say the same about me. But the thing I think is about venturing out of your comfort zone. So if you are looking to go overseas, do be prepared. You are venturing out of the comfort zone. You'll realize, I think Eddie shared before, going overseas, your life, you're going to be exposed to so many different things that you will never see in Singapore. You'll have an experience that nobody else will be able to relate to in Singapore. So it is going to be very unique. The difficulty will lie on the individual, I would say. Yeah, so it's up to how much you're willing to step out of your comfort zone, get to know people, go with an open mindset, be friendly, Yeah, don't just stick with for P&Os. I think we are very unique. We are thrown in that class of a small size. There are not a lot of Singaporeans. There's no, to answer about the international student population is high, is super high. You have people from Africa, you have people from South America, you have people from America, everywhere across the world will be in the university. But you won't have that much congregation of Singaporeans. Yeah, you won't have a lot of Singaporeans in our university specifically. So I think it's a good thing. Some people might not like that, but I think it's a good thing because you are then forced to go and get to know other people, which is a great thing. Yeah. The amount of Singaporeans in the cohort or even in the uni itself is not a lot. But of course, in Glasgow, there are tons of Singaporeans. Yeah, there are tons of Singaporeans in Glasgow.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. I do think that one of the qualities that we're looking at for our prospective scholars is the ability to be independent as well as getting out of the comfort zone, especially for those who are interested in pursuing their studies overseas. Okay, so I think to add on to in terms of the diversity of the university, I've heard from Roy from University of Strathclyde that the university is actually very diverse as a whole. So I think for Nigel shared, because perhaps the P&O cohort is pretty small, but perhaps other faculty students, there are a lot more international students. And if you are someone who is willing to step out of your comfort zone and get to know others, you'll be able to make friends with people from all over the world. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Perhaps this can be answered by Nigel and Eddie. What is the career path of a PNO? So in terms of like allied health professional, what is the career path? Yeah. Eddie, do you want to go first? Yeah.
Nigel, you can go for the... I think, well, it's similar with like MOH in terms of different tracks, right? So you have like researcher, educator, and clinician, right? Or is it some clinical something? But basically clinician. Yeah. So I think there are different tracks. But to start off, I think in Singapore at least, everyone starts off with at least as a clinician. So you start with a clinician, then you move up to, of course, a senior clinician, get better at clinical work. Then you can explore more things. So here, I think we always try to focus on building a strong foundation first, clinical work. Then once you know the ins and out of clinical work, what needs to be done, then I think you can possibly, if you want to explore more of the administrative role, then you can move on to maybe some administrative work. If you are more interested in research, then I think MOH site also facilitates that. So you can take on the researcher's track. So you can look more into doing clinical research, things like that. Then for educator, I think for PNO, maybe not, currently maybe not yet, but we never know for the next couple of years. In terms of the educator role, because we're quite a small group, small profession, so we don't really have like a governing body per se that we have kind of fixed rules for education, but we share quite well with, between institutions and also within our profession. Yeah, so yeah, I think those are the main 3 tracks that can be explored for job progression as a PNO.
There's a 4th track actually, which is the administrative track. Yeah, which you can choose. So there are the 4 tracks as Eddie said lah. Yeah, and that's the career path law. As of now, as he said, educate for education. You technically, as the more senior you become, you are educating the junior PNOs lah. So there's that aspect also. And as of now, those are the 4 areas that one would progress in the career. Yeah, to be more senior.
Okay, thank you, Eddie and Nigel. Is it right for me to say that usually you will still start off as like a PNO doing clinical work, and then only towards perhaps later part of your career you will get to choose to specialize in one of these 4 areas? Because I will believe that you will still need to get some ground experience to understand what is going on before you are able to step into like a higher position to be able to do certain things that require leadership skills or management skills.
Definitely. And as I was saying earlier, even during this starting phase, you would have opportunities to take on projects, to do things like this, where you can decide which is the area you like to pursue in more. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nigel and Eddie. Before we move on to the Q&A that is open to all our speakers, let's take a quick break from the questions and let's take a look at this video of University of Strathclyde in 2020.
"2020 has been a year like no other in the history of Strathclyde. We entered it as UK University of the Year, Scottish University of the Year, and proud recipient of the Queen's Anniversary Prize. Vision 2025 was launched with energy and drive. The future was bright. But a new virus, COVID-19, was spreading across the world, and we began to feel its impact. The health, safety and well-being of the whole Strathclyde community was at risk, and the global pandemic changed everything we know. has been a difficult year for all. For many of us, life moved online and we transformed the way we live. But the Strathclyde community came together and responded to the crisis. We learned and worked in new ways and followed guidelines to keep our communities safe. Academics from Strathclyde and universities across the sector were placed at the heart of our government's response to the pandemic. Our expertise was recognised and our ideas and evidence were used to plan for the future. Strathclyders worked together to provide practical help. We produced PPE, donated medical supplies and helped on the front line. Our research looked into the effects of the virus. It supported NHS operations and helped with Glasgow's economic recovery. We donated time and money to help those struggling most. Dedicated colleagues remained on campus and kept our students safe and secure, and innovation was placed at the centre of our recovery. We developed new and creative ways to deliver teaching, to celebrate our graduate success, and to welcome new students to Strathclyde. We led the sector with our focus on wellbeing, and despite everything, our success continued to be recognised. What Uni awarded us the university with the best local life. We climbed 36 places in the Guardian's University Guide to number 15 in the UK. And we were shortlisted in the Sunday Times Good University Guide to UK universities. As the year draws to a close and we look forward once again, we know that people working together and research and development will lead us out of this pandemic. The barony has lain quiet all year, but today it is transformed and is home to our COVID-19 test centre to help our students return home safely to their friends and family over the festive period. Our scientists are helping with vaccine production, and researchers are helping to build a post-pandemic world. So thank you for your hard work, help, support and commitment throughout 2020. A difficult year has brought out the very best of Strathclyde. We've come through it together and we couldn't have done it without you. We look forward to working together next year to meet the challenges ahead and to capture the opportunities in a year full of hope. Thank you.
At the University of Strathclyde, we believe ideas can change the world. Our achievements have been recognised with the award of the Times Higher Education's UK University of the Year, the first institution to receive the prestigious honour more than once. This accolade follows our success as the Sunday Times Good University Guide Scottish University of the Year and the award of the Queen's Anniversary Prize for Excellence in Energy Innovation. Our multi-award-winning community is improving health, safeguarding energy and using quantum to push the boundaries of imagination. We're addressing climate change, where big ideas are needed more than ever. Our One Ocean Hub is working with 50 partners to transform the world's response to plastic pollution, rising sea levels and overfishing. Together, we're empowering those who are reliant on the ocean for food, jobs and transport, while protecting it for future generations. In Scotland, we're bringing together the best minds from business, industry and government in the country's first innovation district. We're creating jobs and developing a place where shared ideas can thrive. Along the river, Strathclyde is at the forefront of the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland, an international centre to drive innovation and skills development. Whether we're bringing space data to Earth or developing fintech, our technology is built with people in mind. We're supporting our people by creating an inspiring campus and investing in learning and teaching, research and innovation hubs. We believe our people's health and happiness is at the heart of our success. We've transformed our wellbeing services, and our new Strathclyde sport facilities are empowering elite athletes and those who are trying something new. As a socially progressive university, we are committed to openness. We're bringing people of all backgrounds together, making an impact on our students, our city, and our global community. It's a way of working that makes our alumni attractive to employers and draws partners from around the world. Working together, big ideas can improve the world.
We have now come to the final segment, which is a Q&A session with all our speakers. Feel free to post your questions to any of the speakers. You may want to specify who you would like to direct the question to if you have a specific speaker in mind whom you'd like to hear from. So we have quite a number of questions already came in. So let's go through the first question. Okay. Perhaps this can be addressed by Christine or Roy. During the course, do the students learn to develop prosthetics for body parts besides limbs, such as like prosthetic eyes, noses, etc.? Or is it just mainly limbs for the prosthetics?
Yeah, that's actually not part of the program. It is a pretty kind of specialized area, and it actually tends to be, at least within the UK, it tends to be the sort of area where clinicians will get very specific on-the-job training to undertake that type of work, both prosthetic eyes and noses and ears and things like that. So it's not something that we actually cover. But having said that, again, I think you do gain on the program a lot of the skills required in order to it might be an area that you could potentially move into.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Yeah, Roy, do you have anything to add on?
No, I was just going to reiterate what Christine said. This is really something that falls under the remit of maxillofacial work, so it tends to be a separate thing. In terms of internal prostheses, then there will certainly be people within the biomedical engineering side of the university who would be involved in that. But for us, the prosthetics is limb prosthetics. So that, just to make that absolutely clear to people.
Okay, thank you, Roy and Christine. So for the next question, it is regarding clinical practice placements. Will the students be able to choose their locations, or these are allocated to them? And given the current pandemic, are the placements still occurring?
Yeah, I'll take that question because actually one of my other roles in the department is being the coordinator for the clinical placement. So what we ask students to do is we ask the students to put in, their top 3 choices of where they would like to go on placement, and also a reason or rationale for why they would do that. Obviously, there are limited numbers of student placements in each different location. So to a certain extent, it depends on some of the choices that all students make in relation to where we try to place them. So what I would say is usually if we're not able to place students maybe in their first choice, then usually we do manage to put them in their second or third choice. It tends to be the placements in Glasgow that are actually usually oversubscribed, because we have a lot of students who are from the Glasgow area who want to stay in Glasgow. So we do ask students for a little bit of flexibility around where they might be placed, but we do also try to offer some choice as well. The next question around, the pandemic, I'm pleased to tell you, yes, our clinical placements are still happening. When COVID-19 started to rise in the UK, there was a national lockdown in March 2020, and at that point, all placements were actually suspended. And that was a decision kind of taken in partnership with our clinical placements and also with the university around student health and well-being. So we have then, over the last 6 months, began to resume those placements. So we have had to make a few changes and slightly shorten the length of the current clinical placements. But we're still, those placements are still all happening, and we're really pleased that we've been able to actually accommodate all students back into their student placement so that they are all still on track to graduate within that time frame that we would normally have expected them to. So we would be expecting moving forward that those placements move back to the 17-week time frame, which is what we've always or what we've done for the last 10 years or so.
Okay, thank you, Christine. It's good to know that the students will still have the opportunity to go for placements even though we are in the midst of a pandemic. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So for a patient who needs a prosthetic leg, for example, will they just need one for the whole lifetime, or do they need to change it when they perhaps get obese or grow older, etc.? This question maybe we can get Eddie to answer since you're working as a PNO now.
Hope I get this right, Roy and Christine. Yeah, so usually for patient who needs a prosthetic leg, the main part that we as PNOs design and also kind of clinically assess is the prosthetic socket. So actually a prosthetic leg, there's many components to it. So mainly it's the prosthetic socket, which actually fits onto the limb, the amputated limb of the patient. So actually that is the one that fluctuates in size, so to say, over time. So because after amputation, you know, there's a lot of swelling and things like that. So over time, with more use, the swelling comes down. And over the years, as the volume, we always say like the volume matures. So as it volume comes down, then you'll need a change of the socket over time. But usually with the first socket, usually is probably about time frame of maybe about 9 months to maybe even a year. Then over time, you know, the length of time between each socket change might not be so quick anymore. Yeah, so the short answer will be no, they'll probably need multiple changes throughout their lifetime.
Okay.
Hope I got that right.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. Christine and Roy, do you want to add on to Eddie's answer?
No, Eddie's got it right. I'm glad he was paying attention when he was in. And of course, you know, in the first early period after amputation, the limb can change quite a bit. So maybe there are slightly more frequent changes of socket. The other thing, of course, that was mentioned before is working in pediatrics, where, you know, either in prosthetics or orthotics, then you have to repeat prescriptions and reassess patients rather than simply giving them the same thing that they had before, but to assess the patient for the most appropriate prescription at the time, and then to scale it up for size in the same way that you know, if you have children, you have to buy them shoes every so often because they grow out of the old shoes, right? So it's the same idea, really.
Okay, thank you, Roy and Eddie. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, this is directed specifically to Nigel and Eddie. Where did you guys go for your clinical placements, and could you briefly describe your experience? Maybe Nigel can go first.
Sure. I went to London. I went to London, just outside London actually. It's not in central London, but outside London. It's this place called Stanmore. I went there for my prosthetic placement, and I went to Sweden, the south of Sweden, for my orthotics placement. My experience there, both wonderful, amazing, life-changing. My prosthetic placement was really important for me, I think, because I went there to, it was a center for pediatrics specifically as well, focusing, not specifically, but doing a lot of pediatric works for prosthetics. So that really, I found my really big passion doing that for children amputees as well. So I remember I have so many wonderful stories, wonderful friends from that placement. With my placement in Sweden, that was also again mind-blowing, but in a different sense. I had some challenges. I had more challenges there actually. Different language, even though their English is superb, still, you know, people prefer to converse in their local language. So I had to learn that, which was quite a challenge, but it was quite fun as well. And I learned a lot of new techniques. So they are really quite at the forefront of technology and doing stuff. So I learned a lot of many, in our P&O world, we were quite funky stuff, but it was quite cool. Yeah, it was quite cool to go there. And they really were very nice and welcoming and very warm. Yeah, so I had wonderful placement experiences.
Okay, Eddie, yeah.
For myself, I did my placement all within UK. I did one, well, actually all within England actually. So I did one in Carlisle, which is the north of England, along the border of England and Scotland, and the other one was in London. So for me, the biggest two difference were London. You've got a big metropolitan city, then everything's very busy and things like that. But Carlisle is a bit more laid back. It's a small city or town kind of concept. So the way clinics were run in these two different places, yeah, they're quite different. And I think that's where you really see the differences in terms of clinical practice. So in Carlisle, because the volume is not so heavy, you get to actually see the clinician spending more time with each patient. And also because it was funded by the Morrison's fund, so basically a lot of the veterans were coming in for a lot of the prosthetics. So you actually get to see some of the more high-end kind of microprocessor knees and different kind of prosthetic devices. Then in London, I did my orthotics placement. So that one, we had multiple clinics around London. So it was kind of like, every day of the week, you had a different location to go to. So there's a lot of shuttling about. It was quite busy, a lot more fast-paced. Actually quite similar to how we are in Singapore now. Yeah, so each patient, you do not get a lot of time, but then, yeah, it's just seeing how the clinicians deal with that. And yeah, I thought that was quite insightful. You get to see both fast-paced and slightly slower-paced kind of clinics.
Okay. Thank you, Nigel and Eddie. I'd like to just add on from MOH's point of view, we also offer vacation attachments to our scholars. So for example, Nigel, Eddie, and perhaps Claudia could have gone through vacation attachments during their course of studies. So during their summer holidays, when they are back in Singapore, we do organize like a short 2 to 3 weeks attachment in Singapore at their allocated institution or one of the foot-link clinics in Singapore to go through a short attachment here so that they have a better idea of what it is like working as a PNO in the Singapore healthcare setting. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Yep.
Sorry, can I just say something that, Li Ying, that
Sure.
Eddie, sorry, Nigel would have gone to Sweden because he asked to go to Sweden. Yeah, Eddie or Nigel? Yeah. So what the point I was trying to make was that we never send students to another country unless they express a wish to go there.
Okay.
They may end up in Edinburgh instead of Glasgow if they wish to be in Scotland, but we will not send anyone to a completely different country unless they've expressed an interest in that. And as Nigel said, that added another dimension, I guess, to his experience working in a different environment and another different culture as well. We think it's a very valuable thing.
Okay, thank you, Roy, for the clarification. Okay, we will move on to the next question. So for the scholars, did you face any difficulties in applying what you learned overseas since the education may not be tailored specifically to Singapore? So can Nigel address this question first? Yeah.
So I guess to complete the question, it means applying back to work.
Yeah, applying back to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quick answer, no, because the things you learn is straight away applied clinically. Yeah. So maybe that's the beauty of. So I'm not sure about the other programs, but the program at Strathclyde, I think, is really, as Eddie shared earlier, during our studies itself, we are seeing patients. So we straight away know what to do when we come back in that sense. Not know everything, but you roughly have the foundation of applying whatever we learned, straight away doing the same things. So it's literally, in a sense, we learned in our classroom, we straight away applied it in our work. Yeah. So I think there wasn't so much difficulty in a sense because, as I mentioned, a limb is still a limb. It's just a different nationality limb. Yeah, but it's still the same limb. So there's only so much changes, yeah, that we are doing.
Okay. Eddie, do you have anything to add on?
I agree with Nigel. So I think the principles of design of either prosthetics or orthotic devices are the same. End of the day is on the human body. So in terms of what we've learned in Strathclyde, actually it's still all applicable. And maybe small subtleties of different ethnic groups having different characteristics of maybe limb structure and things like that, but nothing really affects our clinical work. So I think it's actually quite applicable, everything they've learned.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. The one thing that maybe is not the same is the healthcare system.
Okay.
Yeah, the healthcare system, and that actually affects slightly. That affects slightly because the cost of P&O itself is quite hefty. So in Singapore, we do have to foot a bit of a bill. So that does affect the treatment process to a certain extent. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Nigel and Eddie. The next question, perhaps I can combine these two questions into one. So, is the demand for P&O high in Singapore, and why is there no P&O cost in Singapore? Eddie, you want to share first?
Well, I think I'll say MOH have the stats for this, but yeah, but in terms of the role of P&Os, because we do, well, essentially, if you look at orthotics, right, actually it's any sort of bracing or any sort of external support. So we kind of brace anything from, helmets to spinal braces to lower limb or even upper limb orthotics. So I think it's a little bit also on education and awareness, because I think with the demand, if you have more awareness within the medical teams or with the doctors and other professions, then you have higher demand if there's awareness. So it drives the referrals and things like that. So I think right now the P&O industry in Singapore is still relatively new. So maybe because of that, right now, currently, maybe the demand is not as high as it can be. But from, I think, where I'm working and where Nigel's working, I think we can see that there is a rising trend in terms of demand for P&O. So high or not, I can't exactly put an exact figure to it, but I'll say it's rising. Yeah.
I'd like to just add on, maybe Nigel want to go first before I give my thoughts. Yeah. So in terms of demand for P&O, I would say that if you compare it to like nursing, physiotherapy, and occupational therapy, in comparison, definitely the number of P&Os that you see in Singapore is generally quite a small amount of professionals in this field. And because of that smaller number of professionals in this field, there is not enough individuals to make up a full course in Singapore for a university to take up and provide this as a course on their own. So even I would say that internationally, there are not many universities that provide P&O as a course. Some of the universities that I know are in UK, and then only perhaps one or two in Australia, and not many places actually offer this course, even internationally. So I think that in terms of demand currently, it is definitely smaller if you compare it to the more common allied health and nursing professions. But definitely there's a growing trend in Singapore, and if it is something that you're interested in to find out more and pursue it as a career, taking up a healthcare scholarship will help you to pursue these studies overseas because of the financial aspects involved in an overseas university study. Yeah, I think we are about time, so we'll end off today's session. Okay. Thank you, speakers, for your insightful sharing. So we've come to the end of this session and hope that you have benefited from today's program. To the audience, if you have enjoyed this session, please take a few seconds to rate this program at the bottom left of your screen. And our next session, Future of Nursing, is happening tomorrow at 10 a.m. So join us to find out more from our SingHealth specialty nurses on how nursing is already evolving with the times and the role of technology in transforming nursing care. They will also debunk some common first aid myths. Don't miss out on this exciting opportunity. So we look forward to seeing you at our upcoming sessions. Go on and have fun as you learn to dare to care in our online webinars and virtual activities. Thank you once again, and also thank you to our speakers. We hope that the session has been beneficial to all the participants who have joined us this evening. Thank you so much. Bye.